Welcome to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
I'm Shannon Lawrence.
And I'm MB Partlow.
Quick content warning before we get started. This podcast may contain language and disturbing content, so enter at your own risk.
Hi. Hello. I feel like I didn't do my vocal warm-up exercise.
Too abrupt.
Yes. As I sit here
just like, start!
She didn't even say it. She just pressed the button and said, hello.
It's true. Keep you on your toes.
Good luck. Speaking of being on your toes.
So,
No, I'm going to talk about how graceful I am. Because I'm
great.
I am such a vision. So earlier, a few days ago, I went to walk the dog. So frequently it was a gorgeous day, beautiful day. We've had, when we're recording this, because who knows what the weather will be when it comes out. We just had some of the most beautiful fall weather, just glorious days. So I'm ready to go, and I got my sneakers on, and I got, I've got disco jamming in my headphones. So, but I forgot, because I can't help myself. So I'm going for this walk with the dog, and I'm like, take a step, and then I'm shaking my booty. And I walk by a high school. These people are like, they either think I'm funny as hell, or they think I'm having a very long seizure. I'm not sure which it is. But I forgot I had pulled a muscle, like in my hip, or in my hip flexor. So it was like, walk, booty shake, lurch.
They're like, is that a zombie?
I was just like, yes, that's right. They're like, the dog is cute. And I have on my pink ball cap that says bitch. So if you see someone who looks like that lurching about. I was right the first time. Yeah, it's just me. And I just, because it's so funny because you walk by the high school kids and they're all in a little cluster and they all look at you. And I'm like, because they want it, I don't know if they think I'm going to yell at them or reprimand them or what. And I have my headphones in, so if they say anything, I just smile and wave and keep going. They're probably like, man, she's loony. I don't care.
I'm picturing the big guy from the first Men in Black, Edgar, or his wife, I swear she says Ager. The Ager suit. The bug has taken him over, the alien in his face. It's like, but he does this lurch walk everywhere.
Okay, I hope I wasn't that bad, because there was a little booty shaking in the middle. It is like, shake, 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 lurch, lurch, lurch. Ow, 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 fuck. I'll just stride a little and keep in time with the music, and then you'd forget. You get a good song. So, yeah.
Oh, goodness.
You know what I'm going to bring up today?
No, I don't. I don't actually know what you're going to bring up.
Kink shaming.
I was going to make a shirt with like our logo and just says, we don't kink shame.
I think I'm referencing the first time we said no kink shaming.
That's right.
Which I was telling somebody a story about when I worked for a thrift store. And one of my jobs was to go around to their remote drop-off locations and drop something off like a customer and rate how they did. You know, I had to, was it clean? Were they nice? Blah, blah, blah. So I go to this one and there's no answer, but I can hear two guys talking and they're like way inside because it's the trailer part of a tractor trailer. So I kind of walk up the steps and I'm yelling. I'm like, hello. And I stop and listen. And these two guys are talking about the fact that one of them has a girlfriend who he has just learned either likes to have her toes sucked or likes to suck toes. I can't remember which way it went. And the other guy was like, no way! Toes? And I was just like, when I was telling this last night, I'm like, really? On the scale of 1 to 100 for kink, I have to think sucking toes is not very kinky.
I know, but that's okay. Because I don't kink shame. That harms nobody unless you're doing it to people who don't want you to. Right? Unless you're like a serial toe sucker who sneaks into people's rooms. And
you knock them down.
It hurts nobody. So as a kink, very mild. Right? But I am so grossed out by feet. that when I hear about it, I have this like ugh, reaction, and I'm like, I'm not shaming the kink. I just can't handle it because I get a visual. Anything you say to me, I get some kind of visual. That's just how my brain works. It's very visual, and so then I'm like, because I have zero interest in being involved in anybody's feet or with anybody messing with my feet because I'm not a hypocrite. I also think my feet are gross, like.
I have another dear friend who feels the same way about people's feet, and I'm just like, I have no desire to...
Right, but you're not grossed out by it.
Well, some people's feet, yes. Although I do not, now I will, but I don't walk around looking at people's feet thinking, ew, somebody would want to lick those.
I always notice people's feet. There are certain things I notice about people. If their feet are out, I notice those.
Yes.
Then I'll notice people's mouths a lot. And I'm not grossed out by mouths, so it's not like that. It's just a thing I notice about people. And so, but I've recognized people because of their mouths. But then there's also people I'll say, like, this person looks like this person. And somebody's like, but... Then they channel some Lethal Weapon, but that one is black. It's white. And I'm like, yeah, but they have the same mouths. Look. They look alike. And they're like, what? But I do that with different features. Like, sometimes people have the same nose. I don't care what their historic cultural background is. They have the same freaking nose. And I'm going to notice it. So
I get that.
Yeah. But I've done that. Well, these looks just like that. But it's like, okay, they don't look just like. They have this feature that is... But there are people whose faces will be very similar in, like, multiple features.
I have to say, I don't know if she ever did this with you. My sister-in-law, Amy. So we'd be out somewhere and she'd be like, oh my God, that guy behind you looks just like, blah, 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 fill it in. One time it was Owen Wilson. I'm very excited. And I turn around and I'm all, where? And she's like, oh my God, right there. And I'm like, fucking where? What's he wearing? And I'm like, he looks as much like Owen Wilson as I do. But she was always like, oh, that person looks just like, and I could never see it.
That's how I feel when my husband does it. He's like, that person looks just like this person. And I'm like, what? They don't share a feature. They don't share. What are you seeing that they look just like? And then I'll pull up the person that they're trying to be like, this person, see this person? This is what they look like. You've clearly forgotten. Let me help you with this.
Let me just, no, you're wrong. But it was always with Amy, it was always somebody good looking. Or it was it wasn't always a male star. Sometimes it was a female star, and you turn around, ooh. And
you're like, that person looks like Johnny Depp. You're like,
really?
Then you're like, in what way? Because they're a brunette?
Yeah, they're male, I think.
But that's how I felt when people told me that I spent my life being told I look like somebody. Like, it was Winona Ryder for the longest time.
Winona Ryder.
That a lot. I also got what is it? Linda Carter, the original Wonder Woman. And then I got a lot Angelica Houston. And since I did not find her attractive, that always bothered me. I mean, she's distinguished.
I think you're a beautiful woman, but I don't think you look like either of
right.
Any of those
and then
people.
When I gained weight, they were like, you look like Drew Barrymore. And I was like, I do not.
Now, she has a very distinctive mouth.
She does. And I have a small mouth. But, and then the newest one, oh God, I can't remember her name, but she's the redhead and she was in Private Practice. She was the lead of it. Kate Walsh. I started getting her all of a sudden from all these people. And I'm like, how all these people see a thing that I absolutely can't see?
Okay, I could see Kate Walsh more than anybody else you have mentioned.
Okay, but defensively, Winona Ryder, back when that was happening, I was very skinny and much younger and all of that stuff. So I was like, I don't look like any of these people.
I've never been told I look like anybody famous except once it was like, who is your celebrity doppelganger? Somebody told me I looked like Meryl Streep, and I'm like, okay. I don't.
Nope.
You're looking at me going,
no. Well, but I get it about people who aren't celebrities too. That's the thing. It's been a constant thing for me. I have that face where I'm like, you can't remember who the fuck I am, but you know who I look like. That's why my hair is purple. I got tired of people not remembering who I was and being like, you look like this person I met.
Oh, people think Patrick and I are related.
Because you're redheads?
Because we're redheads.
Oh, for fuck's sakes.
I'm like, our features look nothing alike. But thanks. I would take him as a sibling.
I would. Fine.
No hesitation whatsoever. You can't have too many good siblings. Bad siblings, fuck, you get more than enough of those.
Good Lord. So for a while people thought I was their mother. Well, really just my sister. And it happened with my middle brother one time. But then, like, my youngest brother and I, he went to help me pick up, it was a gaming chair I'd gotten for Jeff as a gift, right? And so my youngest brother went with me to pick up this big gaming chair to take home from, like, Costco.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody thought we were married. And I'm all, I am 12 years older than him, and he is my brother. But at the same time, I'm very brunette. Brother, very blonde. So I guess they didn't like. I feel like our faces are somewhat similar. Well, I can see similarities in all of my siblings.
Yes.
So
well, I think I told you when on the South Carolina trip. So there was Nikki, who's in her mid-20s, and me, who's none of your fucking business.
But not your 20s.
No, I'm about to hit a birthday with a 0 on the end. Anyway, and Dan, who's right smack in the middle of our ages. I think he's 45. So
yeah, he's my age.
We would walk into a restaurant to have dinner, and they would look at us, and they just couldn't figure out the dynamic. And they were and I'm like, why the fuck does it matter? But they obviously, because they would look at Dan and Nikki, and you could see them, they'd shake their heads. And they'd look at me and Dan, and they'd be like, what? Who? Because it's very obvious that Nikki and I are related.
Yeah.
But they were just like, who is this man who is not related?
This person accompanying you.
It's like, he's our keeper.
Yeah, there are instances where it might behoove you to figure out somebody's but rarely, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't understand the making an assumption.
Yeah. It was like, we just want some dinner. We don't want to live with you. We don't want to get to know you that well.
It's fine. Just seat us. That you don't have to know how we're related to seat us.
Exactly.
Thank you.
But the other day, speaking of knowing people's backstory, I go to get a key cut at Ace Hardware. Had the greatest conversation with the guy ever. He's like, I got to show you something. He goes, can I show you something? And I was like, as long as it's on your phone and not in your pants, go for it. And he giggles. He's got his phone out. He's one of the performers at Hellscream.
Oh, okay.
So he wanted to show me, because we were talking about him menacing people with a chainsaw, as you do at the hardware store. And so he wanted me to see, he's like, no, I do menace people with a chainsaw when I'm in this costume. And so we were talking about that. Yeah, I have been that clerk who hears the story.
Right.
That's okay. I enjoyed it.
The one good thing about my first job as a concessionist theater is usually when you were dealing with people, there were massive lines because everything came in a rush, right?
Yes.
Here's this set of movies with one starting every 10 minutes, so you're slammed. And then, so I didn't have to. But in general, other than that, people tell me their stories all the time. Or the server tells me their story at a restaurant or something. And I'm like, what about this face? It's because they don't talk that much. So then they're like, oh, so you listen. No. And then it happens.
I once had a massage therapist. Okay, people who massage you are supposed to be quiet. You know, they let you set the pace.
Yeah, but I've had ones that talk my ear off the whole time. And I'm like, I am not relaxed because me having to talk to you and engage in a conversation when I'm already in a sensory nightmare of you being inside my space and touching my entire body is too much.
And this young woman told me all about her child's health issues and her mother's health issues. And her mother had some heavy duty health issues. I get it. But they were not new. They were ongoing. And she just, like, for a fucking hour. And I was like, I don't know you. I don't know them.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Don't want to know.
In fact, I've had more talkative massage therapists than not. Again, me not talking doesn't mean you should fill in the spaces. It means let's sit here in a companionable silence while you touch my body.
While we listen to the wind blowing.
I had one that told me all of her health issues. So then I left feeling guilty that I had her massage me.
Yes. I had one who told me about, it was a man. I generally, if I'm going to go to, I haven't been in a million years, but I prefer to go to a female massage therapist because this one experience was so fucking weird. He was telling me about how hard the dating scene was in Colorado Springs.
While he's
massaging me, and I was like, dude, this is just too fucking weird.
Are you hitting on me?
Yeah, you can.
While you're at it, can I get a happy ending?
Did not ask for that.
What's the code word for that?
There was absolutely no relaxation in that because the more he talked, the more my shoulders went up to my ears, and I cringed and just it's like, my dude, no.
Don't feel this. Play me some music and shut the fuck up.
Play me some nice new agey.
That's probably why I haven't had a massage
bullshit
in
music.
like a decade at this point, even though I have all of these physical issues that would be aided by massage. Mm-hmm. Also, it's expensive, but
yes.
In terms, I really think it's more an emotional avoidance. The Airbnb we're staying at in Mexico, they have like a massage therapist that'll come to your room and give you a massage. And I was like, should I?
You could do a couples massage.
Send me one that doesn't speak English. Except I do speak Spanish to an extent, so then I'll be like, damn it. I still know what you're saying to me. But I'm probably missing out on the juiciest details because I don't know those words. All right, so I'm going to start.
Okay, yes, this is part two of the Stayner family. The stain on the Stayners.
Noise.
Thank you very much.
This one's
I'll be here all week.
Cary Stayner, who is the older brother of the young man Stephen, who was kidnapped and held captive for, 7 or 8 years at this point. I don't know if I mathed it. On February 12th, 1999, a woman named Carol Sund took off on a road trip from Eureka, California to Yosemite National Park with her 15-year-old daughter, Julie, and Julie's 16-year-old friend Silvina Peloso, who was visiting from Argentina. The trip started with a flight to San Francisco where they picked up a red Pontiac Grand Prix. They rented a car. February 14th, they arrived at Cedar Lodge in El Portal and checked into room 509. A few days later, someone who they were supposed to meet up with reported them missing. This is the first anybody's aware they're missing. I do not know what the father's situation was. Was he dead? Were they divorced? I have no idea. No one had heard from them since the 15th, when they'd rented movies from the front desk at the lodge to watch in their room. Police began questioning staff at the lodge, which was a common place for people visiting Yosemite National Park to stay, but they didn't find anything until someone in Modesto, and I did so much mapping for this story, because I feel like it's important to know, was this next door? Was it? So this was about 2 hours away from El Portal in the park. Found Carol's wallet. 2 hours away, which still had her license and credit cards in it. Questioning turned to folks in Modesto, but police weren't getting any closer to finding the women. Then on March 18th, 1999, a man going for a hike found a burned out car near Long Barn, California, which is about an hour from Modesto and 2 hours from El Portal. It creates a bit of a triangle on the map between the three cities, but the thing is, like when you look at the map, it's actually closer to El Portal, but there's no road there, so it must go through the park or something.
Okay.
Yeah. On March 19th, the trunk was opened, and authorities found the bodies of Carol and Silvina, leaving Julie's whereabouts still unknown. Both women had been strangled. The mom and the one visiting from Argentina.
Okay, so the daughter is missing.
The daughter is missing. On March 25th, the FBI received an anonymous letter with a map that led to a lake about an hour away from the car where the car had been located. Somebody was driving all over the place. There they found Julie's body. Her throat had been severely slashed with a knife. It said so that her head was almost severed. And we see that so many times in stories, I don't know when to believe it. I will say that's something I'm going to say here in a moment. This tells me this one actually probably was. Actually, that's probably not an overstatement for once. Her nude body had been dumped on the ground. The note had said, "We had fun with this one."
Well, that's disgusting.
July 22nd of that same year, a Yosemite naturalist was found near her cabin. She'd been decapitated roughly with a knife. That's why I think that the other one probably. Right. Once again, police began questioning Yosemite employees and those of nearby hotels and lodges, including Cedar Lodge and El Portal. An eyewitness reported having seen a blue Scout truck parked outside her cabin that day, and a set of tire tracks backed this up. Realizing that the truck matched the description of a Cedar Lodge employee they'd questioned multiple times after each of the murders, police tracked down Cary Stayner at a local nudist colony where he liked to hang out. He was fully dressed and having breakfast when they got there, if anybody's curious. If you remember last week, this was Stephen's older brother. He was 4 years older, so he was 11 when his brother disappeared.
Mm-hmm. So he would have been 19 when his brother came back.
Yeah, he was 38 at the time of his arrest. To their shock, Stayner confessed. But before he would say more, he made a demand to the officer interviewing him. I read an article. The officer actually has written a book, and this story is in the book. And he was so disturbed that he had to leave the room at one point just because he was he kept calm. You build a rapport. That's how they question these people. You build a rapport. And so he's chatting with this guy, and there's some things they have to pretend that they're cool with, that they're very much not cool with. He said he wanted photos and videos of young girls. A lot of them. He wouldn't call it child pornography. He wouldn't call it pornography. He refused to say, they kept trying to get him to say the words, right?
Right.
He would not, no, just photos and videos. He implied that they should have some of these around due to the fact that they probably investigated a lot of types of cases. That's how he started. So you guys, you investigate a lot of types of cases. So what I'm going to ask you for, he made it.
So that's kind of so you guys investigate a lot of different cases. Could I sample some of the drugs?
Could I have a sampling? Could you bring me a sampler on a little board?
Yeah.
A wooden board.
Charcuterie.
That's right.
For the nostrils.
He made other demands they couldn't meet, such as wanting to be put in a specific jail that was being built, closer to his home or whatever. And they were they were on it. We cannot guarantee you that. They said, sure. With the pornography, they finally said, we'll take it to our bosses, but they're not going to give you that. And anyway, he ultimately just went ahead because they got the report. They got this dude talking. He wanted to talk to somebody. That's true of a lot of these guys too, right?
Yes.
The ones that talk, it's because they would have been waiting for somebody to just spill it all to, whether they're proud of it or disturbed by it or whatever. And so he gives them the details. He confessed everything. He gave them all the sort of details. So let's go through what happened. Backtrack. On the night of February 15th, at about 11 p.m., he had knocked on the door of room 509, having seen the trio of women when they checked in and walking around and stuff. He told them there was a leak he had to fix because he was the handyman for the lodge. But once he got inside the room, he had a gun. He tied up all three women, gagged them, took Carol to the bathroom, that's the mom, and strangled her immediately. He had zero interest in a grown woman. Let's just be clear about this. Removing her body and putting it in the trunk of her rental car. Then he went back inside and made both girls get undressed, and he raped both of them. Sylvina apparently was, I don't want to say histrionic because that sounds bad, but she was crying. She was much louder and acting more upset. To shut her up, he strangled her, then put her body in the trunk next to Carol's. Then he went back inside, tried to clean up the hotel room a bit, and then he put the still living Julie in the trunk with the two bodies.
Ugh.
After driving for about an hour, he saw the area near the lake, pulled over, and slit Julie's throat. He drove to where he ditched the car, walked a ways away, and called a taxi to pick him up, and then he came back a couple days later in his own vehicle and set the car on fire to destroy the evidence. So it actually sat there for a couple days unfound before he burned it.
Nice.
With Joy Armstrong, the person, was she a naturalist?
Yes.
He'd knocked on her cabin door on July 21st, pulling a gun on her. He forced her into the cabin, said he was there to rob her, but he wasn't. Then he bound her hands and gagged her before taking her out to his truck and putting her in the passenger side to drive her. I don't know if he's taking her home.
I heard about that because it was the park employee.
Yes.
That was kidnapped. I believe I remember hearing about that vaguely.
Okay. As he drove away, so she was such a fighter.
Good.
She dove headfirst out of the passenger window while the truck was moving.
Damn.
Yeah. And then she got up and she ran into the woods. Bear in mind, her hands are still tied and that will slow you down.
Yep.
Staynor said he caught up to her and she fought like hell. She pressed her chin to her chest because he was trying to slit her throat. Mm-hmm. So she's putting her chin on her chest, trying to keep him from being able to get to her throat. Damn. And she's bucking her body and all of this. But he was finally able to get it and slit her throat, not enough to kill her, but to really make it so she couldn't fight, because now she's struggling to breathe and all of this. And then he dragged her, still struggling, deeper into the woods out of sight of the road then. Put his foot on her forehead to keep her head still, and then he sliced deeper into her throat. And he went into detail, like when he felt her going limp. And then he cut off her head completely and tried to hide it in some reeds. But it was discovered when they found her body. So it didn't, unless you put it miles away, which you did everything else.
Moving a head 3 feet away from the body is
in
really... That's the way a 3-year-old hides things.
Yeah. In life, she was known to be vivacious, and I do have pictures of her, and very clearly, the big open mouth smile, that you can see her energy in it. But in the end, she was a fighter. Stayner also admitted to sending the anonymous note with the map to Julie's body. Despite the note saying he had acted alone. All this was to mislead, right? Taking the wallet and dropping it off and all of that. Because one murder was committed on federal land and the other 3 were not, he had to go to federal court first. He pleaded guilty there to attempted aggravated sexual abuse resulting in death, kidnapping resulting in death, and premeditated first-degree murder. The guilty plea was to avoid the death penalty. That's why he pled guilty in that one. He got life without the chance of parole for Joy's murder. So, of course, what have we seen in the past? If they don't get the death penalty in one, then they'll usually pursue the charges in the other and try and get the death penalty. So this is California. He went to state court for the 3 murders, where he pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. He had, in fact, been diagnosed with a variety of mental illnesses in the months leading up to the court cases, but none of them indicated he didn't know right from wrong. And my thing is, every time we see this, there's they went to all these psychiatrists and everyone diagnosed him with something different. They're even like, he has mild autism. And I was like, fuck you for pulling that one out again. Here's the kicker. It was also discovered that the Stayner family had a history of sexually problematic mental illnesses. Stephen and Cary's father, Delbert, the dick, had previously been court-ordered to attend therapy due to molesting his daughters. Every child in that family
was abused
in some way. And yes, Cary.
So he had 3 daughters he was abusing.
Yes. But let's put him in therapy and then send him back home. Cary had been molested by his father's brother, Cary Stayner, during the same period.
Oh, God.
Yep. During the same time period Stephen disappeared. He was 11 when it started. So I was trying to figure it out. There was nothing concrete. And I think I cover this later, actually. But it sounded a bit to me that he had been sent to the uncle's after his brother disappeared, perhaps. And that's when this happened. So the uncle even knew something traumatic was occurring and victimized him. But I cannot tell you that for certain. I just know he was 11 when his brother disappeared. He was 11 when his uncle started molesting him. This is going to come up briefly a little bit later. But Jerry, the uncle, mysteriously died on December 26, 1990, while Cary was staying with him. Jerry was killed by a shotgun.
Not going to shed a tear there.
Nope, his own shotgun. And while police have since looked at Cary for the death, it doesn't look like they seriously considered he'd done it then. So I was like, why not? He thought that a teenage, whatever age, I didn't bother doing the math, but no, he was probably an adult then. When asked about his sexual proclivities, he admitted to having thoughts of holding female classmates captive and dominating them, and also murder, starting around age 7. So to be perfectly clear, while he had a traumatic childhood starting at 11, he had proclivities before all of the bad stuff happened.
Right, but this is not meant as any kind of excuse. He may have witnessed in some fashion his sisters being abused.
It could have been. So he did not say that.
Even though he wasn't being abused, he may have seen that is how.
Yeah, right?
This is how it is done. Oh, what a fucking crap.
He had many intrusive thoughts, such as imagining, he would tell these stories. So at one point he went into a store with his mom and he sat there and fantasized about shooting everybody there. So that sort of thing. As an adult working as a window installer, he fantasized about ramming his truck into the building and murdering everyone and setting it all on fire. So, intrusive thoughts. A lot of people have them. A lot of people are on medication for them. There's different reasons to have them. Uh-huh. In high school, his fantasies involved female classmates getting gang raped. So he was never okay, is really the point I'm trying to make here. At age 3, he had trichotillomania, which is the compulsion where people pull out their hair. And they get like these seconds of peace when they first pull it out. And then, all of these things have some sort of reward and need, right? He was bullied in school because of the bald spots and had to wear a baseball cap. And it's interesting because pictures of him as an older teen, there were a bunch that popped up with a baseball cap on even then, but he wasn't still doing it. But I imagine he got used to wearing a baseball cap. He was put on medication for that and eventually grew out of it. While some have tried to blame his sexual deviancy on what happened to his brother, his own words have disproven that time and again. He had these urges well before he's even being molested by his uncle, but his youth was rough. I mean, there's no going around that.
No.
Your brother disappears. He's missing for all this time. So this couldn't have helped the intrusive thoughts and fantasies. So, yes, here's where I go into his uncle being over there then. And what led me to believe that maybe he was sent away to his uncle. And that's when you were talking about that last episode, made me think of this. And I was like, I can't say it. His father repeatedly told him while his brother was missing and while he was having all his mental issues while the father was having trouble with it, that his real son had been taken from him. Hurtful things like that. So things to compound this trauma on a child.
Shit.
See why I was saying that?
Yeah.
Yes.
You were correct. I did not doubt you.
I also couldn't find, because apparently it's not important that he molested his daughters to anybody, not to the courts, not to anybody, because he was ordered into therapy, is my understanding. I also don't know when his father was caught for molesting the sisters, when that was occurring, what anybody's ages were. I don't have any of that data. So my personal theory that has no backing whatsoever, except for the age, is that they said, you know what, maybe he was acting out, or maybe they just didn't want to have him there when they were worried about the brother, and he was a reminder that the brother was missing more so than the sisters, or maybe they were sent somewhere else. Who the fuck knows? Nobody talked about the sisters. So I just suspect that they were like, all right, we're sending you to live with your uncle.
It makes sense.
Cary's sisters and cousins have mentioned that he exposed himself, spied on them, and would hide and take pictures of them. So he was acting out toward also his sisters and cousins. It seemed like more the cousins than the sisters, because it was the cousin talking about it. And there were like snippets from sisters about, it was the sisters, for example, that said that the father had said his real son had been taken away from him. Like, all these kids had such a traumatic childhood.
Where was his wife in all of this?
Well, the sister said that she was the one like remaining strong for everybody and whatever, but she was certainly letting her husband get away with some shit. So I don't know.
Okay.
They never talk shit about the mom, but I'm like, okay, did she not know all this was happening, or was she looking the other way? We don't know. About 2 years after his little brother Stephen died in a motorcycle crash, he tried to kill himself via carbon monoxide, but failed.
Well, that's too bad.
And I will say one good thing about all this is that Stephen was dead before any of this came out about his brother.
Yes.
So he never had to know it. In 1995, he had a nervous breakdown and was committed for a short time. And in 1997, he was arrested for drug possession. Now, that was his only crime that he was actually busted for, which is why when police looked into backgrounds of people, that's how they found. They didn't see, for example, sexual deviancy. They didn't see violence. They didn't see that because he wasn't acting on the violent stuff, at least. He was honest about these crimes and what he'd done. He admitted to raping him. Nowhere did he say, oh, like so many of them do, I killed her, but I didn't rape her, So that type of perpetrator, you'd think that they've committed some sort of sexual crime in the past, because usually it starts with that and then they start killing them, right? Because they're like, well, now I have to hide the evidence because I got in trouble. So did he just never get busted, or was he that good at keeping himself from acting on it until he hit a point? I don't know. So I'm sure that they looked at this drug possession thing, saw the stuff about his brother, and were like, yeah, this isn't our guy. He was also very clean cut. Mm-hmm. He's not an unattractive guy, he just didn't look like the one. Even though, all right, Ted Bundy. He was also, yes. And they said that when he was being questioned and stuff, he was calm. He, no problems. He didn't act weird in any way.
Except for asking for porn.
No, that's later after
Oh.
he's busted. I'm saying when they first questioned him when they were trying to find where the women were. So nothing set off their radars, right? This guy just totally right under the radar. For the state charges, he was found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of kidnapping because others were dead by the time he removed them. Although I've seen people get busted for kidnapping for keeping them in there, like in the room. So technically it should have been 3 counts, but whatever. His sentence this time was death. As a moratorium has been placed on death sentences in California, he's still alive and in prison. He's also under consideration for other murders, including that of his uncle, but it doesn't seem like they're really seriously considering him. And I'm going to name a couple. There were more attributed. And I was like, those don't make any sense. They don't tie in with what he did at all, except that they're involved with being near or in Yosemite, right?
Oh.
So one is for the 1982 murder of Patty Hicks Dahlstrom. Patricia. Patty had moved to Merced to join a cult run by Donald Gibson, the San Anda Apostolic Church. In 1980, it broke that this cult involved sexual assault, and Gibson was tried in 1981 and found guilty. Cary Stayner, and Gibson knew each other, and Stayner had actually attended his trial. Patty had testified against Gibson at the trial and disappeared right after she left the cult, and after Gibson was busted. She was last seen climbing onto a bus bound for Yosemite. Her hand and arm were found on June 28th, 1983. Her skull was found in 1988, and she was actually ultimately identified in 2021 for those parts.
Oh.
They've not found the rest of her. So authorities have surmised, but have no proof, that Stayner perhaps killed her in retribution for...
Yeah.
And also probably just because maybe he happened to see her again because he was working out there.
But it seems like if he was cooperating,
that he would admit it. See, that's my hold up there, is that, like, if he's telling you all this, wouldn't he be like, yeah, I also did these? Or since they didn't question him about it, did he not? Have they tried questioning? I don't know.
Okay. Also,
his MO wasn't to cut up their entire bodies. Right. It was to chop off heads. And this, yeah. So this would have been earlier. You usually don't go backwards and start doing less.
Right.
Is my problem with that one. But everything else, I mean, I get why they're making sure. But I'm going to talk about her briefly again in a minute. Another person whose death he's being considered for is Sherilyn Murphy. Her hands were found near New Melones Reservoir in 1994. I didn't bother mapping it. I'd already mapped a billion things. Her torso was found a couple months later in Vallecito, California by some boys. She was identified in 1995 by a forensic pathologist, despite her head never being found. Again, I think those two might be related because the severed, but not necessarily under him. There was one other murder and a disappearance, and then a separate disappearance possibly attributed to him. Those are the ones that I'm like, what? It doesn't, one's a dude. And I'm like, that's not even on his, what? Nope. National parks are great places to commit crimes. They're busy, but this also brings in plenty of victims who are far away from home and could be expected to briefly lose contact, especially Yosemite, because it's like, I'm hiking, I'm camping. Mm-hmm. Right. Many of them cover huge amounts of near wilderness ground with various hiking trails, canyons, and bodies of water. Enough people go missing in national parks that the National Park Service has a cold cases page on their website for missing and murdered folks last seen in the parks or on their way there. Yosemite itself had the most missing folks, with 10 of those and a confirmed murder, thought to have possibly been perpetrated by Henry Lee Lucas, but that's Patty Dahlstrom, who they also thought, could be Cary, could be Henry Lee Lucas, could be a totally separate person who's chopping people's hands off. Most of the missing in Yosemite are men, and foul play isn't always or often suspected. When I did that one with the bears in the parks and I read the books and stuff, they were like, the dudes do stupid shit in the parks and then they die. That's just a thing that happened. Like, Grand Canyon, the biggest thing was dudes standing out somewhere past the railing and then falling. So they think that but they still haven't found their bodies, right? So But there are also cases like that of Stacy Ann Aris, who was 14 years old when she disappeared while on a hike with 77-year-old man on July 17th, 1981. Now, there was this big group hike, and they had ridden mules to a certain point.
Okay.
And they were all staying in like the same campground or something like that. He had gotten tired and sat down to rest, and she kept going. And after they separated, a guy did see her alone past him, and it was the same guy who had led the mule train or whatever you want to call it. So he knew her. And he saw her standing on a rock off of a path, and then she was never seen again. So technically the guide was the last one to see her. It doesn't look like they thought the 77-year-old man had done it. Her remains have never been found. Nothing. She just disappeared. In other parks, there are known murders where the killers have not been discovered. Armand B. Johnson, radio host, was found with a gunshot to the back of his upper spine on April 13th, 2005 at Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Julie Williams and Lolly Winans were found at a campsite in Shenandoah National Park on June 1st, 1996. They had been bound and gagged inside their tent, and their throats had been slit. Their golden retriever, Taj, was found wandering elsewhere in the park. While there was a suspect at one point named Darrell David Rice, or Darrell, because of the way it's spelled, I'm not sure, of Columbia, Maryland, where I lived, who had tried to run a female cyclist off the road in the park. Like, he got mad at her, he was cussing at her, and he tried to run her off the road, and the authorities thought he must have also done this other crime in a homophobic rage. They were a lesbian couple, but there was insufficient evidence, and the case fell apart after his indictment. So there's been nothing further on that. There are several disappearances in Colorado parks. Bobby Bizup disappeared from his Estes Park camp in August 1958 when he was 10 years old. Wow. They found his remains in 1959 inside the park, Rocky Mountain National Park, in an area that had previously been searched by police and military and Arm and Peace, like rangers or whatever. And then the body appeared there, so they think it was dumped after the searches. But cause of death could not be determined because by the time that it was found, it had degraded. 70-year-old James Pruitt disappeared on a hike in Rocky Mountain National Park on February 28th, 2019, and his remains have never been located. And there was, of Colorado parks, I guess they're not as dangerous as other parks. There was one in Mesa Verde, but they had found him, and they did feel that he had died of he'd gotten lost, dehydrated, died of exposure, whatever. And so he's still on the website, but it's resolved. So Yosemite, I think, I didn't go through and count them, but there were a shit ton of Yosemite, and I am going to post all of their missing posters on our Instagram with the line to call if anybody has tips, just because. I'm going to post all the people I mentioned to their missing posters from that. But then Grand Canyon seems to be number 2 after.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you want to mention your sources?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I will. History.com. All that's interesting, though, I'll say that one had a lot of incorrect stuff in it. So A&E, NPS.gov, the National Park Service, cold case page, Ranker, Wikipedia, CBS News, and Dark Matter.
Damn. That was a big, far-reaching... To start with Stephen.
With Stephen and end with Cary. I'm just glad Cary never had to know that his brother had turned into a monster. Because I feel like that would have just made everything worse. I brought back his own trauma because his brother was a rapist.
Yeah. Ugh. Jesus.
Yeah.
That's just such a horrible family story. So, I don't have something light and fluffy, but I have one of my fabulous compilation pieces. I am still talking about the shit that happens in Waffle House. I tried on the trip to South Carolina. I was like, can we please stop at a Waffle House? And Nikki's like, no. Come on.
Well, that's no fun.
She's like, the food is terrible. I said, but it's the South. It might be better here.
Well, doubtful.
Doubtful.
But it's still great. Like, Chuck and I went to a variety burlesque type show, and it was late at night, and we were starving. So we stopped at Waffle House on the way home.
Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to stop at a Waffle House.
Yeah.
So anyway, this one I have entitled, How Would You Do It? Because I think this is something that there are so many people who are interested in true crime and serial killers that debate this question. how would you get rid of a body? And as people talk about it, there are memes about it. So personally, as a known associate of mystery writers and horror writers, I like to think I have friends who would have my back. If such a
Makes you
situation
sound like a criminal
ever arose. Well, yeah, whatever. I mean, but you see the memes on this all the time. Although I will just say, I wouldn't put much faith in the one that recommends planting endangered greenery on top of the gravesite. That's not serious. But really, there are people.
Why not?
So, but I mean, there are people who, if they just called me up and said, could you put on some dark clothes and bring a shovel? I would. I wouldn't ask questions.
I was rather dismayed recently that I actually started going down that path with someone about their husband. And I was like, oh shit, I'm actually seriously talking about how to do this. And I was like, I will stop now. I was like, disregard everything I said.
I mean, it's a short list, but you're on it. You call, I'm there. I wouldn't be much with the shovel, but I can dig or I can hit somebody with it. It's your choice.
Either way.
Whatever you need. So, what I'm going to do is examine some of the odder ways that human monsters have used to try and dispose of their victims' remains. And some people are really creative and some are just fucking stupid. First up is Dennis Nilsson, who was born... Yeah. You know him?
Yeah.
He's born...
Well, no, I don't. Let's be clear. I know of him. We're old friends. We go way back. No.
Like when I said, did you do the guy? Are you going to do the guy?
Are you doing the guy? No. Wow.
Okay, Dennis Nilsson was born in Scotland in 1945. His parents divorced, and he, his mother, and his siblings lived with his maternal grandfather, who he was apparently very, very close to. After his grandfather's death, Nilsson's mother married again and had 4 more children. Lonely and isolated, Dennis grew up knowing he was sexually attracted to other men, and he joined the army at age 16, where he trained as a cook and a butcher. Mm-hmm. When he left the army in 1972, he trained to be a police officer, but left that career to become a recruitment interviewer. I don't know exactly what a recruitment interviewer is, but I'm like, he was in the police. He actually successfully, completed the training to become a police officer. So in 1973, one of Nilsson's co-workers went to the police claiming that Nilsson had taken photos of him while he was asleep. The victim was so distraught he had to be hospitalized. While Nilsson was questioned, he was released without any charges. And I'm like, how many coworkers have the opportunity to take pictures of you while you're asleep?
Right.
I don't get that close.
Do they go to cons together?
I'm still going to steal your shoes. That's on my bucket list.
That's on my bucket list.
Short, highly curated list. So in 19...
Got yourself.
Yep. Okay. In 1975, Nilsson moved in with David Gallichan. I may be butchering the pronunciation, and I apologize if I am, who stated that they were nothing more than roommates. I do not know whether they were or not. When Gallichan moved out, I think they were together for at least 2 years. Nilsson spiraled into depression and into alcoholism. So, skipping ahead just a little bit to February 8th of 1983. Londoner Michael Catran went to work, as usual, for the Dino Rod Plumbing Company. Mm-hmm. And his first call was to visit an apartment building in Muswell Hill, which is in North London. So the tenants were complaining about a bad smell coming from the drains and about difficulty flushing the toilets. So he goes in, digging around, and he opens up and he finds bones and rotting flesh. So there are 2 tenants nearby when he makes this discovery, and he talks to them about it. And one was just absolutely, oh my God, that's awful. Blah. And the other one was Nilsson, who said, quite assertively, it's probably just KFC remains that someone's flushed.
Okay. Super specific. Got it.
Yes, it was very specific.
They're like, I sent some secret herbs and spices in this.
Yeah. Katran wasn't buying it, and neither were the police. When they approached Nilsson to question him the next day, he told them that what they were looking for was in large bags around his flat, around his apartment.
Mm-hmm.
So aside from the truly noxious odor, police found 2 heads and other large body parts. Nilsson immediately confessed to killing 15 young men and attempting to kill at least 7 others. 3 of the later victims were cut into pieces small enough to flush down the toilet, although apparently not, thus causing the blockage that led to his downfall.
Do we really need to start putting signs on restrooms now, not just saying don't flush your pads or diapers, but also do not flush random body parts?
Yep.
I guess so.
Although that was something I used to, what happened to so-and-so? I used to say I hacked him to bits and flushed him down the toilet. I guess I can't make that joke anymore. No. Prior to that, Nilsson had lived in another apartment where he stored bodies under the floorboards, taking them out regularly to converse with them and to have sex with them.
Okay.
Because, he was eventually convicted of 6 murders and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for at least 25 years. He got in trouble while in prison for a scam where he would help prisoners slash their wrists or their necks to get them moved to a psych hospital where it was believed it would be easier to escape from. Mm-hmm. He died in prison in 2018.
Darn.
Next up, a classic. Although there's no class anywhere in the story, Robert Willie Picton was an egregious piece of shit in Vancouver, Canada. He liked to drive around and pick up sex workers that he knew had substance abuse issues. Are you nodding your head like you've heard of this one?
Yeah.
He would drive them to his pig farm a few miles away in Port Coquitlam, where he raped, tortured, and killed them. Now, some he buried in fields, but the rest, you all know it, he fed them to the pigs. That's why I called it a classic.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this was just awful. The health authorities in Western Canada had to warn people about possible human flesh contamination in any sausage that came from that farm.
I love it. I'm just picturing if that happened now, like Colorado Springs. They're like, if you purchase sausage,
yeah, don't.
It may have been contaminated with human meat, and we'd be like, what?
Yeah. So in the late 1940s, also in London, John George Hay killed 6 people before being caught. His method of disposal was to place the body in a 45-gallon drum and fill it with concentrated sulfuric acid. And it normally took less than 30 minutes for the body to dissolve.
Cool.
I found that astounding. He was caught and executed in 1949. Now, earlier on the podcast, we've talked about H.H. Holmes, who had the big murder house. He's considered to be the first American serial killer, had the boarding house near the Chicago World's Fair.
Which is BS, but yeah.
Yes. But he did have the occasional dead body. So what he would do is wait until the bones were mostly free, and he would sell cleaned skeletons, organs, and full cadavers to medical schools and laboratories, since medical ethics basically did not exist. I'm not sure now sometimes whether they exist or not either, but
it depends on how much you pay them and how much they're in need of corpses because there haven't been enough donations.
Yes.
That's how it starts every time.
Yep.
We don't have enough.
So, I don't think we've talked about Joe the Alligator Man Ball.
I talked about some sort of...
I couldn't remember if we had or not, but... I know I talked about a guy who used alligators to kill people, but it wasn't this guy. Anyway, yeah, the name says it all. When Prohibition ended, Ball opened a tavern in Elmendorf, Texas.
Yep.
Okay. Hosted cockfights. Figured bigger animals would mean bigger profits, so he bought alligators and put them in a concrete swimming pool. There's a really disgusting facet that I can't decide whether to mention or not.
Do it.
He would let people throw animals in.
They'd go find stray dogs.
Dogs or, catch a raccoon and throw them in. So before long, local women started going missing, like his barmaids, his ex-girlfriends, and his wife.
Yep.
I can't imagine why he thought he would get away with this. When the authorities showed up to question him, he grabbed a pistol and killed himself. The police found a bloody axe, as they always do.
Yeah, but it wasn't human blood on it. If I remember, it was actually horse blood or something when they tested it.
But they found decayed remains in with the alligators. So I'm glad. Can you imagine? All right, son, you're the new guy on the roster. You need to climb down in there.
Run with the alligators and find some corpses.
Yeah. Henry Landru was a married man with 4 children who preyed on women whose husbands were either fighting in World War I or had already been lost in the conflict. So after conning them out of their savings and their valuables, he murdered at least 11 women. His method of getting rid of the corpses was an iron stove. He burnt them up. By all accounts, the stove mostly did an excellent job, but...
That's how you create Fred Krugers.
Right? One victim had a sister who was able to provide a description of and an address for Landru. The police found hundreds of human bone fragments, teeth, hairpins, and dress hooks in the villa. The villa that he shared with his mistress, by the way. He was found guilty and, love this, he was sentenced to death by guillotine.
Nice.
You don't see that anymore.
Yeah.
Just so you know, the odd methods of body disposal are not limited to English-speaking countries, nor are they all relegated to the past. In 2012, the cannibal monster of Yunnan, who is better known as Zhang Yongming, he was eventually found guilty of killing 11 young men. He had been convicted of murder in 1979, but was released in 1997. So when the police searched his apartment, they found flesh hanging to dry. And my favorite detail in this whole story, eyeballs in wine bottles. I got a thing for eyeballs. He fed some of the remains to his dog and sold some at a local market as ostrich meat, which I will probably never eat again.
Again? Have you had it?
I have. He was executed in 2013. I'm just going to state for the record, because there were a lot of cases that I'm not going to talk about individually. Hiding a dead body under the floorboards or stuffed into the walls never, ever works. You have to be ignorant of the most basic facts of biology to even think that would work longer than a few hours.
Yeah.
So, not going there. But people did. They would not brick them up, but they would stick them in a wall and just wallpaper over it. That does not handle the smell or the flies.
Just the sheer number of them that have been caught because their apartment reeked or whatever. I mean,
Yes.
Dahmer kept getting complaints and stuff. But that means they were living in it and completely unbothered by it.
Yeah. Oh, and it's
and of course
foul.
The flies that have to be attracted to that. There's no airtight apartment. There's flies and maggots and everything else that's drawn to that smell, and you're just living in all that. Yeah.
Albert Fish ate some of his victims, then sent letters to the parents of his victims reporting the gory details.
He's such
And that was the first time we used the phrase "no kink shaming." I think on the podcast because of the needles he inserted into himself. I'm pretty sure that was our first use.
If you're just hurting yourself, cool, do it.
Yeah.
If you're hurting a consenting adult, do it as long as you listen to their safe word. Don't kill and eat people.
Exactly. There's one that sounds like it came from the Wild Wild West, but instead happened near the Jumna River in India. A canal officer saw a buffalo corpse floating down the river. So he removed the carcass from the water and noticed stitching across the stomach of the buffalo. So, first of all, I'm like, he must take his job really seriously that he removed the corpse from the water.
Yeah, and then he was like, I'm going to investigate the reason this is stitched.
I think most men would poke a dead cow with a stick. Sorry.
Yeah.
I've seen it. They would. They really would. So, he cut the stitches open. And inside he found the body of a young man. So I've not been able to track down who the young man was or what happened to him, because this happened around 1938. But that's some friggin' determination right there. To cut open a buffalo and stuff him in
It
and
really,
stitch
that's
it
a
back
lot
up.
of work.
That is a lot. That is not, what is it? The unplanned.
No,
This is not a crime of passion. This is planned.
Premeditated.
You gotta have the stitching step, the thread, the cord, whatever you're gonna use. One case I came across detailed a teenage son who had killed his father. So what happened, the father had a well-documented drinking problem, and he came home one afternoon drunk and physically attacked his son, who picked up a Swiss Army knife and stabbed him in self-defense. I do want to note, I got this particular story from a scientific paper, not from a police report, so it doesn't have all the details that I would like it to have. The son then took the father to the backyard, dumped him in a ditch that they were working on, and covered it with cement. The father was reported missing, but the body wasn't discovered for a year. However, fun fact, burying a body in cement actually serves to partially preserve the body.
It, yeah.
So don't do that.
Dear Mafia.
Yeah. Another couple of quick notes. A body thrown into a cesspool can be hard to identify.
Yeah.
Conversely, you see this all the time. A body tucked into a freezer pretty much just guarantees a quick ID of the body and excellent preservation of any and all evidence on the body.
Right. You just froze all the evidence right there
it's just,
to save.
Uh-huh. I don't know why. Yeah, but you always see that. Oh, look, their freezer has a lock on it. And I'm like, well, then there's a dead body. You just know that. When you see that on TV, it's a trope. If there's a freezer with a lock on it, there's either a dead body in it or like behind it.
Right.
And it's the MacGuffin.
The MacGuffin.
The lock on the freezer is just a MacGuffin. So yeah, how would you get rid of a body? Nikki always talks about floodplains, but
as I just said that I was planning something for a friend's husband, I'm not answering your question.
Okay. Well, what's your
plead the fifth.
What would your second favorite be? What can I say? I was in a mood.
You were in a mood.
I was in a mood, and I was like, what would I do if someone threatened me?
Which one do you pick?
Well, none of these, because they didn't work very damn well. I have always said I would use the pig farm, but...
Well, the dude that dissolved them in acid, did he get busted with a body before it was dissolved? I assume that
there was body fat. It was human body fat.
And so it could still be tested.
Yes, although it was long enough ago.
So then you'd have to skim that and flush that down the toilet. Or feed that to the pigs, but they would have had sulfuric acid and you would just kill all the pigs.
That would not be good.
So
I really don't know.
Put it in a red wagon and drag it around like your Oprah. And then everybody thinks it's your own fat. You remember when she did that?
Serious as shit. If I kill somebody, the first call I'm making is to you. So that's my solution.
If you drag it around in a red wagon, nobody thinks there's anything wrong with it because they're like, well, that's weird. But they don't think you committed a crime.
If you put the dead body in the red wagon, you could be, I'm doing a whole weekend at Bernie's.
Decorate my house with it and let it spend the month.
Yeah, decaying.
Decaying.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I'm sure Jeff wouldn't notice. Comes home, why is
He'd have to be in on it because he's the one who decorates. Be like,
yes.
Hey, Jeffrey, put this body in there.
I know it feels real.
Or we'd be like, that's the best one yet. And we'd get so many compliments.
I would call Sisters in Crime. Those bitches have some seriously twisted ideas. Mystery authors know how to get rid of a body.
Yeah.
So I just make...
Probably more so than horror authors. We're just focused on the monsters that do it. True. Not all of us grew up like me reading true crime and finding out how you get away with it.
Not that we're suggesting that you should kill people and try to get away with it.
But if you kill people, you should try to get away
with it. This is for entertainment purposes only.
That's right. This is not instructional.
No, it's telling you how these people failed.
Yeah, look at they all got caught.
And for God's sake, Don't bury them under the floorboards. Jesus, who does that?
I mean, did they never read Edgar Allan Poe as a teenager?
Apparently not.
Crazy. That heartbeat.
Well, if you're pulling them out to talk to them.
I was picturing Nilsson, like, getting all pissy. Because he's like, you're not much of a conversationalist, are you? And then you, like, pan the camera over and he's talking to a skeleton.
Or a decomposing corpse.
Right?
Yeah.
Just something. Like, you idiot.
It was like he would pull them out to talk to them and have sex with them. Fun.
So juicy. Depending on when we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. God. We're sick. But see, I told you I would make this one funny and bring it around.
Just clear up all the sad shit.
Yes. So my sources were crimeinvestigation.co.uk, The Daily Record, also in the UK, listverse.com, strangeago.com, and researchgate.net.
ResearchGate.
Oh my God, I didn't even look at Wikipedia.
Good for you. That's good.
I'm so proud. I'm so proud of me.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. Tell us how you do it.
Yes. Good Lord.
But only if you don't plan on doing anything.
Yeah.
Because then you'll get busted. Because you will have said how you did it. Wanted to do it. Duh. Plead the fifth.
We know nothing.
I'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram or at our website, mysteriesmonstersmayhem.com.
Please like, rate, and review, follow, and share wherever your favorite podcasts are downloaded.
Thank you for listening and supporting our podcast. We'll be back next week with more shenanigans.